I had secured a multi-million-dollar order for my wife's company, a feat that led to me ending up in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer from a business dinner. It was only on her 7th call that she finally picked up, her voice laced with impatience. "What's with all the endless calls? Don't you know I am busy?" I gritted my teeth against the pain. "I am in surgery at the hospital. I need your signature. If you can still talk, you're obviously not dying." Just as she hung up, I overheard, "Honey, hurry up. I can't wait." I stared at the dark screen of my phone, a bitter smile on my face. If this was how it was, I didn't want this marriage anymore. So, I dialed a number I hadn't called in 3 years. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. During that time, Jessica didn't call me once, nor did she send me a single text message. Even if you raise a dog, you'd go looking for it. After a few days apart, it was clear that in Jessica's heart, I was worth less than a dog. My heart completely chilled in that moment, and my resolve to leave became even firmer. After being discharged, I didn't go home. I went directly to the company. Today was the agreed upon signing day with the other company. No matter what, I had to be there in person. After all, I'd risked my life for this deal. It was just because Jessica casually mentioned wanting to be a successful female CEO of a publicly traded company that I pushed myself to the limit, working day and night. In just 3 short years, I transformed the Vance, a small company on the brink of bankruptcy, into one of Riverton City's top corporations. Jessica also achieved her wish of becoming a well-known female entrepreneur. Aside from the company not yet being publicly traded, Jessica had gotten what she wanted. Securing this major deal would bring Jessica's company one step closer to going public. I felt I had fulfilled my promise, settling all the debts of gratitude I owed Jessica. From now on, we would be quits. As soon as I entered the company entrance, I immediately sensed the tense atmosphere. Even the security guards by the door were on high alert. It clearly showed how much importance Jessica placed on this signing ceremony. But for some reason, I felt that as I walked, my colleagues were giving me strange looks. I even wondered if I had something on my face, or was wearing the wrong clothes. However, after checking myself from head to toe, I found no issues. The signing ceremony was set to begin in half an hour. I planned to use the remaining time to double-check for any oversights. Yet, when I arrived at the signing ceremony venue, I was stopped at the door. "Vice Ethan, I am sorry, you can't go in. Are you kidding me? The contract was negotiated by me. How could the signing ceremony proceed without me?" However, the person looked troubled, hesitating as if they wanted to speak but couldn't. My heart sank slightly. Just as I was about to ask exactly what was going on, a sarcastic voice came from behind me. Well, isn't that Vice Ethan? So, you finally decided to come back to work. Oh, wait, my bad. I forgot you're no longer the vice of our Vance." It was Kevin, Jessica's assistant, speaking. Kevin had always looked down on me. He completely ignored my contributions to the group, convinced that I was nothing more than a kept man, a pathetic freeloader, living off Jessica. Usually, Kevin would speak to me with veiled insults and sarcasm, but for Jessica's sake, I never bothered to argue with him. Today, however, I wasn't going to put up with him anymore. I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" I ignored Kevin and looked at the person nearest to me. That person usually had a decent relationship with me. Glancing cautiously at the arrogant Kevin, the person whispered, "Mr. Ethan, didn't you see the announcement in the company group chat?" An announcement? I had been in the hospital these past few days, so I'd simply set the company group chat to do not disturb. I'd been in such a rush this morning that I hadn't had time to check the messages. I took out my phone and found the company group chat. The latest message was a personnel change notice posted by HR 2 days ago. It roughly stated that I was being removed from my position as vice manager of the Vance, and a man named Daniel would be taking over. See clearly now. Kevin sneered. "People should know their place. You do nothing all day, yet you still hog the vice's position. Aren't you ashamed? I've never seen a kept man as brazenly comfortable as you. The signing ceremony is about to begin. Anyone irrelevant, get lost." Kevin rolled his eyes, his disdain for me unconcealed. I frowned, letting out a cold scoff. "Who do you think you are, speaking to me like that? Even if I am no longer the group's vice, I am still Mrs. Jessica's husband." It was the first time Kevin had ever been directly challenged by me, and in front of everyone, no less. His face flushed with embarrassment and indignation. He glared at me hatefully. What are you so proud of? You probably don't know this yet, but Mrs. Jessica is going to divorce you. I chuckled dismissively. Oh really? Mrs. Jessica is divorcing me, and you, of all people, know about it before I do. The actual party involved, on a day like this, Jessica was definitely at the company. So, I pushed past Kevin, who had deliberately stood in my way, and strode towards the CEO's office. With a bang, I kicked open the door. Inside the office, Jessica was sitting disheveled on a strange man's lap, kissing him. I looked at the two of them emotionlessly. My apologies. Did I interrupt something? Seeing me, Jessica showed not a trace of guilt for being caught red-handed. Instead, she snapped angrily, "Have you gone senile? I remember telling you many times that you're not allowed to enter my office without my permission. Get out." As her words fell, a decorative stone piece from Jessica's desk flew directly towards me. I couldn't dodge in time, and the piece hit me squarely on the forehead. After the sharp pain, warm, sticky liquid quickly blurred my vision. The world before me turned blood red. That single throw from Jessica shattered the last bit of affection I had for her. Jessica hadn't expected me not to dodge. Her eyes flickered twice, and she spat out two words, "Serves you right." As if feeling no pain, I asked Jessica with a blank expression, "Why did you remove me from the vice's position? If I hadn't come to the company today, I wouldn't have known I'd already been kicked out. I could give up the vice's position, but I had negotiated the contract, and no one else would get to enjoy the fruits of my labor." Jessica slowly stood up from the man's lap, tidying her clothes. "Why do you ask? You were absent without leave for 3 days. How dare you ask me why?" A surge of anger caught in my chest, nearly making me gasp. I retorted coldly, "Are you sure that was absent without leave?" I had clearly called Jessica, and told her I was in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer, but she was busy cavorting with another man, completely indifferent. Jessica's mouth twitched guiltily. "How was I supposed to know if what you said was true or false? Besides, the capable deserve the position, only those with ability deserve to sit in this seat." I almost laughed from sheer frustration. Ability? Does securing a multi-million-dollar deal for the company not demonstrate my ability? If it weren't for me, this signing ceremony wouldn't even be happening today. No sooner had I finished speaking than Jessica scoffed. "Ethan, you don't actually think you're responsible for securing that multi-million-dollar deal, do you? Wasn't it? I had a bleeding ulcer to secure this order. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I risked my life for this major deal." To my surprise, Jessica burst into laughter as if she'd heard the funniest joke. Doubling over, "What an absurd boast. Sterling decided to partner with the Vance out of respect for young Brandon. What does that have to do with you? He really trying to take all the credit?" She continued, "I knew you were thick-skinned, but I didn't know you were thick-skinned." Sterling was indeed the Vance's partner in this collaboration. Jessica then reined in her laughter, scoffing disdainfully. "Besides, I am the CEO of the Vance. I can give the vice manager position to anyone I want. When did it become your place to dictate? Fine, I don't want this vice position anymore, as long as you don't regret it later." I understood now. With the contract secured, Jessica was planning to discard me once I was no longer useful. But she forgot that the contract hadn't been formally signed yet. If I could negotiate this contract, I could also ruin it. Jessica scoffed again. "Regret? Ethan, you don't actually think this contract can't be signed today without you, do you?" "That's right." I nodded firmly. "However," Jessica sneered dismissively, "Ethan, you think too highly of yourself. Confidence is good, but overconfidence isn't." At that moment, the man who had been sitting in the office chair walked over to Jessica, casually wrapping his arm around her slender waist, as if I weren't even there. "Jessica, sweetheart, is this your husband?" Brandon looked me up and down with disdain, showing no sign of alarm that a paramour might feel when encountering the husband. The moment he spoke, I recognized him as the man Jessica had been cavorting with 3 days ago. Brandon wasn't tall, and his appearance was quite ordinary. I couldn't help but sigh at how Jessica's taste had clearly deteriorated. She had picked up a broken glass bead and considered it a treasure. Then I heard Jessica scoff. "Husband? He's just a kept man for our Vance family, a pathetic freeloader, a mere sycophant. I must have been blind to ever have fallen for him. Now, seeing him makes me sick to my stomach." Jessica made no attempt to hide her disgust and contempt for me. My hands clenched at my sides, though I had long since accepted that Jessica no longer loved me. Hearing her belittle me so openly still stung. That's easy enough, the man said, pulling a check from his bag and tossing it dismissively in front of me. Kid, I like your wife. This money is your compensation. I bent down and picked up the check from the floor. Seeing the amount, I smiled. 3 million. I, the distinguished second young master of the Stonebridge family in Capital City, never thought I'd see the day when someone tried to buy me off with money. If knew about this, I could only imagine how much he'd mock me, seeing my smile. They assumed I was pleased with the amount on the check. Jessica's disgust deepened, and Brandon's grin widened. I looked at Jessica and curled my lips into a smile. 3 million. It seems young Brandon doesn't love you as much as you thought. The moment I finished speaking, Jessica and Brandon's faces instantly changed. Jessica's face flushed crimson with shame and indignation, her eyes piercing me like barbed hooks. A CEO of a prominent company was being haggled over like merchandise right in front of me. Jessica must have hated me intensely. Brandon gave a sinister smile. Kid, 3 million is a lot of money. You probably wouldn't earn that much in your whole life, even if you worked yourself to death. Let me give you some advice. Being too greedy isn't a good thing. You might end up getting the money, but not living long enough to spend it. However, my face showed no sign of fear from his threat. I remained composed. Young Brandon, you jest. Are you trying to steal my credit? And my wife too. But since you like second-hand goods, consider her a gift. Ethan. Jessica's voice was shrill, her face cycling between green and red, consumed by humiliation and fury. I looked at Jessica coldly, without a trace of warmth in my eyes. Didn't you want to divorce me? I'll grant your wish, but there's one thing. Just don't regret it later. Hand it over. I extended my hand to Jessica. What? Jessica paused, confused. I looked at her with a sneer. The divorce agreement. I assume you already have it ready. Otherwise, how would Kevin have been so sure that Jessica was going to divorce me? He really willing to divorce me? Jessica seemed to disbelieve that I would agree so easily. If you don't bring it over for me to sign now, I might actually change my mind. Hearing this, and seemingly genuinely afraid I would go back on my word, Jessica turned and picked up a pre-printed divorce agreement from her desk. Handing it to me, I signed my name without hesitation and tossed the divorce agreement back to Jessica. Only at this moment did Jessica truly believe that I was serious about divorcing her. Her eyes flickered, and her attitude softened. Ethan, don't blame me. You know my greatest wish is for the company to go public, but unfortunately, you couldn't help me achieve that. Jessica's words made me feel like a joke. I deeply regretted the 3 years of heartfelt dedication I had given. I couldn't help you. Who worked day and night for 3 years to help you achieve your dream? And who drank himself into the hospital with a bleeding ulcer just to secure that order for you? Yet, instead of eliciting any guilt from Jessica, my words only brought out more disdainful mockery. That's precisely the difference between you and young Brandon. Being born is a skill too. Some are born lowly, while others are born at the peak. What you have to struggle for day and night, even at the cost of your health, young Brandon can achieve with a single word. I sneered. So, you'd throw yourself at someone like that asterisk just to get the company listed sooner. I really didn't think your taste was so bad. They say when you're hungry, they'll eat anything. And it seems that's truly the case. I looked mockingly at Brandon's short stature and thinning hair. Jessica's face turned crimson, like a pig's liver, her finger trembling as she pointed at me, asking for it. Brandon snarled, swinging a fist at me, but I was faster, landing a solid punch squarely on his nose. Ah! Brandon wailed in pain, bright red blood streaming from between his fingers as he clutched his nose. Young Brandon! Jessica shrieked, roaring furiously at me. Ethan, are you insane? Do you even know who young Brandon is? I thought for a moment, then shook my head. No, I don't. Don't blame my ignorance. I genuinely had no idea where this young Brandon had come from, but seeing Jessica's nervous expression, his identity must not be simple. There were no prominent Stonebridge families or clans in Riverton City. I guessed this young Brandon must be from Capital City, sharing my surname. He should also be from Capital City's Stonebridge family, but I couldn't recall anyone like him in the Stonebridge family at all. Seeing that I wasn't afraid, and was even smiling, Jessica thought I'd been scared senseless. Now is scared, aren't you? Apologized to young Brandon immediately. Maybe hell be merciful and let you off this time. But's eyes were bloodshot and his face contorted in a grimace. He pointed a blood-stained finger at me. Apologize. Too late. If I don't beat the living daylights out of you today, my name, Brandon, will be written backward. Where are the security guards? Brandon looked towards the door. Jessica's office was already surrounded by onlookers, and Kevin had remained by the door. At this moment, Kevin was like a loyal dog, obedient to Brandon's every word. Soon, Kevin had gathered a dozen security guards, and rushed them towards Jessica's office. Seeing this, Brandon became even more emboldened. Grab him. I am going to skin him alive today. He then shouted to the security guards, go on, all of you. I'll give you 1,000 for every punch, 10,000 for every kick. The more you hit, the harder you hit, the more I'll reward you. Hearing this, the security guards rubbed their hands together, eager for the bonus, and swarmed towards me. Just as their fists were about to land on me, a cold, stern male voice rang out from the doorway, I'd like to see who dares to touch him. Before he even finished speaking, a group of men in black appeared before everyone. The man leading them exuded an air of natural authority, the kind that comes from being in a superior position for a long time. It was none other than Alexander, my older brother and the current head of the Stonebridge family. Alexander's gaze swept over me casually. When he saw the bleeding wound on my forehead, his steps imperceptibly paused. In that instant, I distinctly felt a fierce surge of killing intent erupt from his eyes. Because our parents were always busy, I was essentially raised by Alexander. He was like a brother and a father to me, protecting me extremely well. This is why everyone knew the Stonebridge family had a second young master, but few had ever actually seen him. From childhood up, Alexander had indulged me in almost everything. The only time he ever got angry with me was when I was dead set on marrying Jessica. Alexander said that Jessica seemed to have impure intentions, not like someone who could settle down and live a stable life, but I stubbornly refused to believe him. For that, I didn't hesitate to cut ties with my family, and came to Riverton City alone. Little did I know, Alexander's words would turn out to be a prophecy. As the Vance grew more and more successful, Jessica's attitude towards me grew colder and colder. It slowly evolved from cold remarks to open infidelity. If it hadn't been for Jessica's utter disregard for me last time, which disheartened me completely, I might not have been able to bring myself to contact Alexander. If there was one person in this world I least wanted to see me in such a pathetic state, it was Alexander. Yet, Alexander had seen me in this miserable condition more than once. Once at the hospital, and now this was the second time, all within less than 3 days. No one noticed the subtle interaction between Alexander and me. Especially, Alexander had an extraordinary demeanor, and it was clear at a glance that his identity was not simple. Unfortunately, Brandon's rationality was completely shattered by his overwhelming rage at this moment. Who the hell are you? He spat. How dare you interfere in my business? Do you know who I am? I am a Stonebridge from Capital City. Mess with me, and I'll make sure you regret it. Brandon's arrogance was quite overbearing. However, facing Brandon's malicious warning, Alexander's expression didn't change. Seeing his pretentious act, I couldn't help but scoff. You say you're Stonebridge? Brandon deliberately straightened his posture, lifted his chin, and puffed out his chest like a proud peacock. That's right, the family of Capital City was known by everyone. All this time, as long as he revealed his identity, even members of prominent noble families had to bow their heads before him. Alexander said nothing, merely gently rubbing the jade signet ring on his thumb. He looked at Brandon as if he were watching a jumping clown. I, however, chuckled again. Since he is Stonebridge, how is it you don't even recognize him? Who the hell is he? Why should I have to recognize him? Brandon scoffed disdainfully. However, before he could finish speaking, Brandon's eyes suddenly widened, seemingly unable to believe his eyes. He rubbed them hard. Only when he confirmed he wasn't mistaken, did Brandon's face suddenly turn pale, under everyone's incredulous gaze. The once arrogant Brandon actually dropped to his knees with a thud, his eyes filled with panic, his voice trembling. Patriarch. Brandon's action shocked Jessica as well. Young Brandon. At this point, someone in the crowd also recognized Alexander's identity, and gasped in surprise. Why does this person look so much like Alexander, the patriarch of Capital City's Stonebridge family? I smiled. He doesn't just look like him, he is him. The moment I finished speaking, the room fell silent. Everyone looked at Alexander with shocked and fervent eyes. Capital City's Stonebridge family was beyond reach. Alexander, the patriarch of the Stonebridge family, was practically a deity. Countless people went to great lengths, but struggled to even catch a glimpse of him. Now, Alexander himself had suddenly appeared. How could anyone not be thrilled? However, Alexander ignored everyone's strange looks and let out a frustrated huff. Now he's showing some spirit. Why didn't you fight back when they were hitting you earlier? Look at how pathetic you are. The distinguished second young master of the Stonebridge family. Not only did someone steal his wife and his position, but now his identity was almost usurped too. Alexander's gaze swept over me like an icy arrow. Perhaps it was a natural bloodline suppression, but I had instinctively feared Alexander since childhood. I awkwardly tugged at the corner of my lips and lowered my head, feeling guilty. What did the Stonebridge patriarch just say? He said Ethan is the Stonebridge family's second young master. Everyone looked at me in disbelief. Some in the crowd even wondered if their ears were playing tricks on them. Jessica, like everyone else, looked at me with skepticism. It was true. I had never told her about my identity as the Stonebridge family's second young master before leaving the Stonebridge family. My brother and I had made a bet, a 3-year period. During these 3 years, I wasn't allowed to reveal my true identity to Jessica. If after 3 years, Jessica still loved me and was willing to continue with me, then Alexander would agree to Jessica entering the Stonebridge family's gates. At the time, I was confident that Alexander would lose, but now I was being thoroughly proven wrong. Cold sweat dripped down Brandon's forehead onto the floor. Just then, Kevin, seemingly oblivious to the danger, suddenly jumped out and shouted, "How is that possible? Everyone in Riverton City knows Ethan is a kept man, a freeloader relying on the Vance family, with no parents. Where would he get an older brother? And the Stonebridge family's second young master. I bet he doesn't even know which way the Stonebridge family's front gate opens. Besides, who doesn't know that Alexander, the Stonebridge patriarch, is currently attending the industry summit in Capital City? How could he possibly be in Riverton City? Young Brandon, don't let them trick you." Kevin's reminder made everyone realize that this year's business industry summit was indeed being held in Capital City. Alexander, as the summit chairman, had delivered a speech at the opening ceremony. The media had widely reported on it, so many people knew about it. The summit wasn't over yet, so logically, Alexander shouldn't be here. 3 days ago, Alexander had just finished his opening speech when he received my call. So, Alexander handed over all subsequent work to his assistant, and personally came to Riverton City to pick me up. But outsiders were unaware of these details. That's right. Just because Ethan says he's the Stonebridge patriarch, does that make it true? There are plenty of people who look alike in this world. Who knows if these two aren't in cahoots? More and more people found Kevin's argument convincing. They all looked at Alexander and me with suspicion. "Oh, I get it now," Kevin said, looking as if he'd just had a revelation. "Ethan, these people aren't hired by you, are they? PFFT. You've really spent a fortune, haven't you?" As said this, everyone else also became uncertain. At that moment, I was truly speechless. Brandon himself had already admitted Alexander's identity as patriarch, yet Kevin still had the nerve to question it. Utterly lacking in judgment, Jessica also chimed in, "Exactly. If you say he's the Stonebridge patriarch, how can you prove it?" Accepting my identity as the second young master of Capital City's Stonebridge family was far more difficult than me being a useless kept man. It would make her seem utterly blind and foolish. Hey. Interesting. Alexander's laugh was light, but I knew it was a prelude to his anger. No one had ever dared to question Alexander before. This was a first. I silently lit a mental candle for Jessica and the others. "You idiots. Why the hell don't you shut up?" Brandon roared, frustrated. "I am not blind. I can recognize the patriarch. It's not your place to be yelling and shouting like this." Brandon was truly fuming at Jessica and Kevin. These two had absolutely no situational awareness. Seeing the gloom in Alexander's eyes, Brandon knew that if this situation wasn't handled perfectly, his future was ruined. Brandon gritted his teeth, stood up, and swung his arm, delivering a loud slap to both Kevin and Jessica. Then he obediently knelt back down in his original spot, offering Alexander a fawning smile. "Young Brandon." Jessica clutched her burning cheek, her eyes reddening as she looked at Brandon in disbelief. The man who had just been speaking sweet nothings to her had now publicly slapped her. No one could accept that, especially not in front of me. Jessica's eyes showed clear humiliation and indignity. She looked towards me, her face full of grievance. As for me, my expression remained calm, without any emotional change. "You reap what you sow," everyone has to take responsibility for their choices, and Jessica was no exception. Kevin was also stunned by the sudden slap, frozen in place. At that moment, someone in the crowd noticed Alexander's actions, and their eyes widened as their gaze fell on the jade signet ring on his hand. Look at the ring on his hand, he really is the Stonebridge Patriarch. At that moment, no one questioned Alexander's identity anymore. Everyone knew that Alexander, the patriarch of the Stonebridge family, wore a jade signet ring year-round, never taking it off. It was the symbol of the Stonebridge family patriarch, then really is the Stonebridge family's second young master. The people nearby reacted, looking at Alexander and me with awe. So who exactly is this Brandon? Daring to impersonate a Stonebridge, he must have a death wish. In that instant, everyone looked at Brandon as if he were a joke. Brandon's face was ashen, and he trembled like a leaf. I took out my phone and dialed a number. When the call connected, I turned on the speaker. Mr. Harrison, hello, this is Ethan of Vance. Soon, a strong, resonant male voice came through the receiver. Mr. Ethan, weren't we scheduled to sign at 10 o'clock? Mr. Harrison was the head of Sterling collaboration with Vance this time. Mr. Harrison, I am not calling about the signing. I wanted to ask if you know anyone named Brandon. Brandon? No, I don't. Mr. Harrison pondered for a few seconds, then replied with certainty, all right, I understand. Sorry to bother you. I hung up the phone, and looked at Brandon with a half smile. Why so quiet now? You were pretty impressive just a moment ago, impersonating a Stonebridge to swindle and cause trouble outside. You know the consequences, you tricked me. If still didn't understand by now, she had truly lived for 20-some years in vain. Just then, Alexander's subordinate came over and whispered a few words to Alexander. Alexander nodded slightly. In just a few minutes, Alexander's subordinate had thoroughly investigated Brandon, because I was close by. I heard everything clearly. Brandon did indeed have the surname Stonebridge, and was from Capital City, but to call him a true Stonebridge would be a stretch. He was merely from the lowest branch of the Stonebridge family's distant relatives. He didn't even qualify to attend formal Stonebridge family events. That's why he didn't recognize me. However, since he did share the surname, Brandon leveraged the Stonebridge family's influence, parading around outside under the Stonebridge name, using their prestige to intimidate and cheat. He was almost always successful because he was clever, usually choosing locations far from Capital City, so that no one would expose his fake identity. The family had always been ruthless towards those who infringed upon their interests. Regardless of your background or power, offending the Stonebridge family was equivalent to offending the entire upper class of Capital City. No one could bear such consequences, let alone a distant, insignificant branch like Brandon. Just as Brandon didn't know how to respond, his phone rang. Seeing the name flashing on his phone, Brandon nervously answered the call. Dad. The next second, the furious roar of a middle-aged man echoed through the entire office. You good for nothing. Don't call me Dad. You cause trouble all day long. I am telling you one last time, deal with the mess you made yourself. If you can't get Alexander and Ethan's forgiveness, don't bother coming back. Just consider me as having never had a son like you. Immediately, the call was ruthlessly cut off, from childhood until now. This was the first time Brandon's father had been so furious with him. If he weren't absolutely enraged, he wouldn't have said such harsh words about disowning him. Brandon now deeply understood the gravity of the situation. He also knew Alexander's methods for dealing with enemies, and that actively begging for mercy now might offer a slim chance of survival. Patriarch, I was wrong. I truly was wrong. Brandon crawled a few steps, pleading desperately on his knees to Alexander. I was blind. I didn't recognize you and Ethan. Please, you magnanimous man, spare me this one time. Begging me is useless. Your aggrieved party is over there, Alexander said, slightly lifting his chin, his gaze indicating my direction. Brandon immediately scrambled towards me. Ethan, I am sorry. I was foolish. I was misguided. Please forgive me this one time. Okay. Brandon's tone was humble and respectful as he spoke. Looking at Brandon, prostrate on the ground like a dog, I frowned in disgust. Get out of here, and don't let me see you again. If I ever find out you're still using the Stonebridge family's name to swindle and cause trouble, don't blame me for being truly unpleasant. Yes, 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 I'll disappear right now. The moment I finished speaking, Brandon scurried away as if granted a great pardon. Crawling and stumbling out of the room, everyone watched the dramatic scene unfold with astonishment. Kevin, who had provoked me repeatedly earlier, was now cowering in a corner, trembling, wishing he could become invisible. Let's go. Alexander beckoned to me, turning to walk out the door. Brandon was gone, so there was no longer any need for us to stay. Just as I took 2 steps, I remembered something. I turned back to Jessica and extended my hand to her. Give it here. What? Jessica, dumbfounded, snapped back to reality, looking at me questioningly. My ring. Give it back to me. When we got married, the only valuable thing I had on me was the ring my mother had left me. It was meant for the future daughter-in-law of the Stonebridge family, and Jessica no longer had the right to wear it. Ethan. Jessica called out my name with a choked sob, pressing down on the hand wearing the ring. Apparently not wanting to return it, I didn't want to waste time, so I stepped forward, grabbing her hand to take it off myself. Sensing my intention, Jessica hid her hand behind her back, then, with a thud, she knelt before me. Husband, I was wrong. Tears of regret streamed down her face, as she clutched my shirt tightly. Let's start over. I'll listen to you from now on. Please, just forgive me this once, okay? No. I rejected her without hesitation. Jessica, just as you said, I gave you a chance. I told you I would help you, but you refused to believe me. You'd rather trust the empty promises of some unknown person than your husband, who slept beside you for 3 years. In the end, you never trusted me. Jessica completely broke down. But you promised you'd help me get the Vance listed. If you leave, what will happen to the Vance? All along, I had effectively made all the decisions for the Vance. Jessica, as CEO, was just a figurehead. I looked at the distraught Jessica with indifference. I've just informed the people at Sterling that the cooperation will continue. Securing this major deal brings Vance to the brink of going public. This also fulfills the promise I made to you back then, and repays the debt of gratitude I owed you. As for what happens to Vance from now on, it has nothing to do with me. Back then, I had a falling out with my family, and ran away from home, penniless. I collapsed on the street from hunger. It was Jessica, passing by, who took me to the hospital. At that time, the first time I saw Jessica after waking up, it felt like I was seeing an angel. I was determined to marry her, even if it meant falling out with Alexander. Unfortunately, my judgment was truly flawed. As group grew stronger, Jessica became increasingly arrogant. She not only cheated on me publicly, but she was also self-righteous about it. She really should be grateful for that act of kindness 3 years ago. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let her off so easily. Vance grew and prospered under my management, and it would be effortless for me to destroy it. Jessica's face was ashen, and all the light vanished from her eyes. Her hand, clutching mine, loosened. She slid weakly to her knees on the ground. Snatching the ring back from Jessica's hand, I immediately turned and strode away. There was nothing left here for me to care about. Back in Capital City, I took over the family business. I poured all my energy into work and studies. It wasn't until one night half a year later that I received a text message from Jessica. Ethan, I am sorry. The next day, I only then heard that Jessica had committed suicide. The night before, apparently. After I left, Jessica had to make all of the company's decisions herself, but was never skilled in business. After several major decision-making errors, Vance's situation worsened considerably. Before long, Vance went bankrupt. Jessica also accumulated massive debts. Overwhelmed by despair, Jessica came to a drastic decision. Before she took her life, she sent me one last message. How deep Jessica's regret was before her death, only she herself could truly know. I took care of Jessica's remains, and chose a burial plot for her, AT's grave. I planted it full of the roses she loved most in life, for the sake of our marriage. I suppose that was the last thing I could do for her. I don't think he'll come here again in the future. The past is truly the past. All of us should move forward. A great future awaits me ahead.